available to women affected by breast cancer who need your help. Please help us to help others. Call now.
We all know that movement is like medicine, but getting the movement you need to feel better can be a challenge. Now you can keep fit while you sit with QB, the world's leading compact seated elliptical. QB gives you active sitting, letting you burn calories and keep moving in an easy and low-impact way, all while you work, read, or watch TV. QB was named a top 10 gift by Time Magazine and has been featured all over the world. It's whisper quiet while it works your abs and core, hip flexors, glutes, quads, hamstrings, and calves.
QB is a lifesaver for me.
Here's your answer to your problem.
I feel young again.
Join the hundreds of thousands of people moving more with QB. Call to find out how to get your QB with free shipping and a 30-day completely risk-free trial. You'll also get this QB workout mat free. Now keep fit while you sit with QB.
To order, call 800-289-5820. That's 800-289-5820. Call now.
You're watching RNN TV.
Good evening and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French.
I promised the American people that help was on the way. Today, I can say we've taken one more giant step forward in delivering on that promise.
That was President Biden after the Senate passed a nearly $2 trillion COVID relief bill Saturday. It's expected to pass in the House as early as Wednesday, just in time for the president to sign into law before key unemployment programs expire at the end of the week. This is seismic. There's no way to underplay just how a big deal this legislation is. And experts saying this could do more to fight poverty than anything else that's come out of Washington in at least one, if not two generations. In a few minutes, I'm going to be speaking with a researcher at Columbia University who dug into this and has done the most thorough review of it. And again, we'll have some more of those numbers. But first, I want to bring in Andrew Whitman for an idea and a breakout of what's in this and why people are saying it's such a big deal. Andrew, a lot of times you can't really touch and feel these things. It's just policy wonk stuff, not this thing.
Yeah, it is directed to help the poorest Americans, and they will feel the help, Rich. But let's start with what's in the bill. There have been some changes to it, thanks to all the 11th hour negotiations, but the people who need the most help should get the most help. Overall price tag remains the same, $1.9 trillion. Money to Americans, we're still looking at $1,400 checks for everyone in your home. Child tax credits now $300 a month for kids 5 and younger. It's $250 in credits for each kid between 6 and 17 years old. And they squeezed the income limits a little. Anyone earning $75,000 or less gets the full payments. Anyone making over $80K gets nothing. Everyone in between those two numbers gets partial payments with higher income levels in effect for single parents and for couples. The bill remains a lifeline for strained state and local governments whose budgets have been blown up by COVID. Plus, there's money for schools, transit systems, and pension plans. Enhanced unemployment benefits got a little smaller this weekend. They're now $300 a week, down from $400, but check it at the bottom. You're going to keep more of your money when you do your taxes next year. The first $10,000 in unemployment benefits are going to be tax-free. And the bill still has nearly $50 billion for COVID testing and other scientific advances. But it's the help the bill will provide for America's lowest earners that feels particularly noteworthy on the eve of the vote in the Senate tomorrow. Benefits that will help them get through COVID and after COVID is just a memory. As an anti-poverty tool, Columbia estimates the stimulus will lift 13 million Americans from poverty this year, including 6 million kids currently in poverty. The nation's lowest earners have been feeling the largest stings from COVID. Nearly half are behind on their housing payments. Nearly 1/4 don't have enough food. The stimulus would add about 20% to the average incomes of Americans making below $35,000 a year. And this is noteworthy, too. It would help low-earning single mothers even more. Take a single mother making minimum wage, which sadly is just $7.25 an hour, or $15,080 for minimum wage workers who work 40 hours a week. Thanks to a child tax credit, child care credits, and other benefits, a single mom with a 3-year-old would see more than $4,700 from the stimulus. That equals 32% of their income. A single mom taking care of a family of 4 could get nearly $12,500 from the stimulus. That would be essentially 82% bonus over their regular incomes. Rich?
Andrew, thank you. I want to bring in our guest, Megan Kern. She's from the Center on Poverty and Social Policy at Columbia University. Megan, I saw one of your colleagues said, and basically it says, you got to go back to Social Security to see this kind of governmental commitment to help the poor. It's not an exaggeration. We're talking generations you got to go back to target the most in need Americans. This really intends to do that.
Yeah, the American Rescue Plan that just recently passed, it represents one of the most significant things that we have seen in ages. My colleagues and I at the Columbia University Center on Poverty and Social Policy took a look at the bill, and we see that it could basically pull 13 million Americans out of poverty just in 2021. And that's obviously amidst, the pandemic and the related economic crisis. And that's poverty reduction on a scale we don't see often or in recent memory. The biggest impact that it can potentially have is on child poverty. It could basically keep 5.6 million children out of poverty. And what that means is actually cutting child poverty by more than half just this year.
We gave an idea for a single mom with a kid or a family of four, from a third to nearly 80-some-odd% a change in what they'll have in terms of net dollars over the course of a year. I know people know the stories or believe they know the stories, but there are tens of millions of Americans living right on that razor's edge right now, making impossible decisions between paying the utilities or the rent fee or food on the table. This, at least not just intentionally, but if you look where it's designed, Megan, this goes directly to them, right?
Absolutely. It's extremely well targeted to those who were in need before the pandemic and have seen, increasing hits to their income and what little economic security they had. But it also, makes a difference to those who maybe were doing okay before the pandemic, but really took, hits in terms of job loss or health situations, or they lost family members, as all too many people have. And their situation just changed overnight, essentially. And so the best thing about this package is that it is comprised of so many different components, from the stimulus checks, which can reach people at all different income levels, to continuation of unemployment benefits, which is critical to keep those who are still struggling with the job loss, to actually now some new provisions specifically for children and families with children, with the expansions to the child tax credit. But it does so much more too. It does food assistance, it does housing assistance, it does child care assistance. All of these things are what families need, because they have been basically, suffering on all of these counts all at once, which has just been unprecedented.
Hopefully, and I think most of my audience would say, well, this is who needs it the most here. But even if you find, and I heard some Republicans on the Hill saying wasted monies, et cetera, even if you took the morality out of this, these are people going to spend the money. If you're targeting money that's going to get into the economy to keep the broader economy, let alone the lights in the apartment on and food on the table, this is a population that's going to reinvest it. They're not going to stick this in savings. They have to spend it because they don't have cash on hand.
Right, absolutely. What we've been seeing, we've been seeing for months and months now, videos of people lining up at food banks, people who have been, calling into places because they're worried about being able to pay their rent, that they need help supporting their kids. This is a crisis that, hasn't gone away overnight and is going to continue. And what the research has shown is that the distributing money to families through unemployment benefits or stimulus checks through the CARES Act back in 2020 made a massive difference. It kept millions from poverty at the height of unemployment back in spring of 2020. But as soon as that assistance went away, poverty went back up. We saw 8 million more people below the poverty line in September than there were in May, even though the unemployment rate was lower. So what we know what works, which is getting families flexible cash that they can use to meet their needs. They're going to spend it on food in local grocery stores. They're going to spend it on making sure that they can pay their bills and keep their families housed and safe. And so this money will be put to extremely good use by families quickly. And it's going to make a real difference, to individuals, but also for their local communities.
History can look back at Social Security and Medicare, and we look at the poll numbers right now. Do you believe, and I know your group looks at policy and obviously the impact on the poor, that this is going to be one of those things where people are going to be able to say, I remember in 2021 how my life changed dramatically from where it was before and where it was after, and how it really rescued, as we said, well over 10 million Americans, closer to 20 million Americans here. Isn't it one of those few moments where you can touch and feel something that comes out of Washington, if not in real time, pretty close to it?
I think absolutely. When we're talking about the fact that families have not been able to meet their basic needs, we've seen hunger rising. We've seen people missing rent payments and things like this rising for months and months. The sheer fact of receiving cash support, whether it's through a check or it's getting direct deposited into your bank account, is such sheer relief for families who have been so stressed for pretty much a full year now, that it is incredibly tangible and families will remember it. A lot of these things are still time-limited supports. A lot of this assistance is still only in place for a period of time in 2021. But there are things that, advocates are making the case for long-term change. Something like the expanded child tax credit, for example, beginning in July, families with children are going to start seeing deposits or checks come in the mail of essentially $250 per child per month, slightly higher at $300 if their child is under the age of 6. And that's something that families can now begin to count on as a meaningful part of their budget. It's not something that they're going to just receive once a year at tax time. And this has now also been expanded to include, the 1/3 of all kids who had been left out of the child tax credit before. So even just taking that one simple policy item, families are going to see this in their accounts every month. And that makes a real difference. And that's a game changer moving forward.
And again, I was looking at the numbers you guys showed by almost every age group, every demographic, including race here. This impacts so many people across the spectrum. And I think partly as shocking is how many people fit in the category of desperate need right now. It isn't a specific area, a specific party, a particular demographic. This just attacks poverty.
Yeah, I think what's important to point out is that even before the pandemic hit, poverty and just need in the U.S. was arguably too high, given the fact that we're a wealthy nation. But even before the crisis hit, you had 50 million Americans who were living below the poverty line. And depending on how you measure it, it's essentially, we're talking about a threshold of $28,000 for a family of 4 to survive on for the entire year. That comes out to less than $600 a week to meet every single cost that you have, from food to housing to transportation to just anything else you want to do in life. And so even before the crisis hit, far too many Americans were living in such insecurity that by the time COVID came and sort of undermined the economy in such a sharp and shocking way, that it's unfortunately not surprising that poverty was, threatening to go so high. But when the U.S. government stepped in last year, it basically, with something like the CARES Act, staved off what could have been the worst poverty spikes in 50 years that we would have seen. We know that policy works. We know that getting cash to families works. And so this new American Rescue Plan just has the potential to do so much. And it's really heartening to see that it's coming into place now.
Government getting something right. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, all week long, we're going to dig into what I think is this historic COVID relief bill. I'm going to show you how many Americans, millions and millions of Americans, this thing's going to help, and explain why it's such a sea change from the packages that came out of the previous administration. After the break, Democrats may not be one and done. This could be the first of many big things they're going to try and get through with a razor-thin majority. When we come back, we'll explain.
This is important news for people who have taken Zantac or its generic ranitidine and then suffered from cancer. Zantac and generic ranitidine have been linked to cancers such as bladder cancer and kidney cancer. According to the FDA, Zantac and ranitidine contain NDMA, a known cancer-causing agent. NDMA has been linked to cancers of the bladder, kidney, colon, esophagus, liver, ovaries, pancreas, and other cancers. If you or a loved one took Zantac or ranitidine and were then diagnosed with cancer, call the lawyers at Davis & Crump right now to see if you're eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call the lawyers at Davis & Crump right now if you or a loved one took Zantac or generic ranitidine and were then diagnosed with bladder cancer, kidney cancer, or any of these cancers. Call now to see if you're eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Our first consultation is free, and we don't get paid unless you get paid. Call Davis & Crump right now. Operators are standing by.
Remember when taking a hot bath was the best part of your day? And for some, it can be hard and even not safe just getting in. Older bathtubs can be as high as 20 inches. Let's face the facts. As we get older, our knees and backs start to hurt us. Getting in and out of an old bathtub can be difficult and even dangerous. Jacuzzi Bath Remodel, a name you know and trust, as the perfect solution for you. We call it the tub-to-shower conversion. We'll remove your old bathtub and the need to step over a dangerously high threshold, replacing it with the safety and luxury of a low-profile walk-in shower. Advanced materials mean no more mold or mildew from an old bathroom. And all this in about a day. As a special bonus to you, you'll get a special extra safety feature for free. So please call now.
After my home was burglarized, I knew I needed to get a home security system. So I did my research and read reviews on Consumer Affairs. So I called.
To help choose the right home security system, search Consumer Affairs to read actual customer reviews and find offers like free equipment and monitoring plans starting at less than $1 a day.
Protect your home. An ADT authorized premier provider wants to help you feel safe by offering you a complete home security system, free, featuring $850 in free equipment with professional monitoring at our lowest rate, starting at less than $1 a day, with installation starting at $99 and 36-month monitoring contract. Upgraded packages require additional install fee for new customers only. Termination fees apply.
I don't think people realize how inexpensive it can be to protect your home and family. That's why I tell everyone to call ADT.
Call 1-800-761-0578. That's 1-800-761-0578.
When 50 Democrats voted early Saturday morning to approve the Biden stimulus bill, all 50 Democrats in the Senate, they approved the measure. That includes West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin. He's the most moderate Democrat you got in Congress, and only after his demands were met, including smaller stimulus checks, lower unemployment benefits. Manchin also helped make sure that a boost in the minimum wage would not, keyword not, be in the bill. Manchin and Arizona's Kyrsten Sinema, they've essentially shared largely the same role since Democrats took over the Senate. They are to the right of the rest of the caucus, so bills have to be crafted to make them happy, or Democrats have to get Republican votes instead, and I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. That holds true for every vote in the Senate right now, including one issue that impacts all other Senate votes. It's called the filibuster, the longstanding rule that 60% of the Senate has to okay everything that's going to get voted on, even if the final vote just needs the barest of majorities. Now, it gives the minority, right now, the GOP, the ability to say no. They'll block legislation, even if the legislation would pass in an up or down vote. Manchin and Sinema, both of whom come from traditionally Republican states, they've rejected every call to get rid of the filibuster. That is, until this weekend. Manchin now says on some issues like election security, voter access, he might consider a path that only requires a simple 50 votes.
What you're saying is if Republicans continue to be unified in opposition and don't have an open mind, then you may change your mind?
Well, I'm not going to change my mind on the filibuster. I will change my mind if we need to go to a reconciliation to where we have to get something done once I know they have process into it. But I'm not going to go there until my Republican friends have the ability to have their say also.
Sure. Short answer is he said yes. Manchin also said he's considering making the filibuster harder to do, making it more like the one-man filibuster immortalized in the 1939 classic Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
I had some pretty good coaching last night, and I find that if I yield only for a question or a point of order or a personal privilege, that I can hold this floor almost until doomsday. In other words, I've got a piece to speak, and blow hot or cold, I'm going to speak.
Andrew's favorite movie. We see these sorts of one-person filibusters every now and then when it comes to the Senate. In 2013, Rand Paul, not exactly Mr. Smith, held a 12-hour filibuster on drone strikes. Ted Cruz, he went for 21 hours later that year protesting Obamacare. In 2016, Chris Murphy, he talked for 14 hours demanding changes when it came to gun laws. Bernie Sanders, 8.5 hours in 2010 opposing a tax package. The ultimate example, the still record 24-hour filibuster from North Carolina's Strom Thurmond trying to block the 1964 Civil Rights Act. But those kinds of filibusters are more often thought of as stunts with no real hope when it came to derailing legislation. Now, there's an assumption that every bill will be filibustered, so every bill has to get 60 Senate votes just to proceed. Except for budget bills, one per year can get passed with just 50 votes. That's known as reconciliation. What Manchin was talking about would create another exemption for votes related to elections and voter rights. All right, Andrew, we could have even gone West Wing here. We didn't. But, you know, this could be huge. I know no one's going to take that much stock of it, at least the general public, because, okay, whatever Manchin says. But the idea that the rules could change, so many things never even get to the floor because they're dead on arrival. They're never going to get there. This would really make life more difficult for McConnell.
It would. First of all, I want to start by saying there is a valid argument in support of the filibuster, and that is that anything that passes through the Senate, we can't just be, temporarily passing laws every time you change administrations or every time you change a majority in the Senate. So you need bills where you have to get both sides to come together, and that's ostensibly the spirit of the filibuster, to get cross-party support for at least some bills, and you can actually get progress that lasts. But the biggest problem right now is the bill that the House passed last week on voting rights, and that bill that would guarantee, automatic voter registration, extended early voting, voting by mail, independent redistricting commissions, all that good government stuff. The problem is there's 50 Republicans in the Senate right now. Not a single one of them is going to vote for it. So what Manchin is talking about is carving an exemption, sort of like reconciliation, for stuff like that.
Except there's other stuff, too. Look at Supreme Court nominees. I mean, come on, right? I mean, we're coming to an age where we've always had partisanship, and anybody who believes otherwise, again, watch Mr. Smith. That's back in '39, okay? But not like this. This is no just because no, not on rhyme or reason. I mean, even the moderate Republicans, like the Romneys and the rest of the world, they get in line for the vast majority of stuff. I don't know. I think that this, I agree with you in principle. Yeah. We need 60 votes on stuff. We can't just be one party majority on everything. I mean, but I don't know where this ends, Andrew.
And McConnell created so many exemptions in it, so Supreme Court justices, and then it was all court nominations as they went through, which is how he was able to put so many Trump appointees on so many different benches. But yeah, I do think it's probably, from the politics of the whole thing, people like Manchin and Sinema can't just willy-nilly change it because they'll be, politically hanged for it back in their home states. But if there's progress that their voters want and it's being blocked, if it's being obstructed by Republicans, that would give them some leverage to punch some holes in the filibuster. That may be what we're looking at.
And also, I think this would put some more pressure on some of those Republicans that they can't just vote with the party for everything. If their vote is going to get immortalized here and they know one way or the other they got to vote on some stuff, they might be forced to actually vote their conscience more often. All right, we come back. As the government deals with the surge of immigrants at the border, it is still trying to reunite hundreds of families still that were separated by the Trump administration. After the break, the attorney who is leading the effort to locate the families and bring those families back together, he'll join us to tell us where we stand.
Help. When you fall and can't get help, you will lie on the floor for hours or days in constant, terrible anguish, which often results in a tragic outcome. But with Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast.
Don't worry, help is on the way.
With any of Life Alert's 3 emergency systems, help can be summoned immediately, whether at home,
I've fallen and I can't get up.
in the bathroom,
I've fallen in the shower.
or on the go.
Help! I'm in the park and I can't get up.
And batteries never need charging. Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-215-6582. That's 1-800-215-6582. Call now. 1-800-215-6582.
If you have Medicare, you've probably paid thousands of dollars in Medicare taxes. You may be eligible to get more for your money. Medicare Advantage plans provide all-in-one coverage for your hospital, medical, and prescription drug benefits. Plans may cover dental, vision, hearing, and expanded at-home telemedicine visits. They may even offer dentures, free eyeglasses, free hearing aids, free gym memberships, and free transportation to medical appointments. Over 37 million people with Medicare don't have a plan like this. Are you missing out? Call the Say Medicare helpline to check your eligibility. The call and help are completely free. You may be able to get all the benefits you want and need from one Medicare Advantage card. And that could simplify your life and wallet, too. You just need one card for doctor checkups, dental cleanings, eye exams, and more. You may be able to join a plan with $0 copays for doctor visits, $0 medical deductibles, $0 drug deductibles, and even $0 premiums. You may qualify to get up to $148 added back to your Social Security check every month. If you have Medicare, you may be eligible for a Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits. But no one, I repeat, no one is going to give you these benefits automatically. Don't wait. You must call the number on your screen. We can search for affordable plans in your area that accept your current doctor and prescriptions. You've worked hard your entire life, so see if you're eligible to get the benefits you want and deserve. Call the Say Medicare helpline to speak with a U.S.-based licensed insurance agent. All callers will receive a free, no-obligation Medicare benefits review.
Call 800-902-7507. That's 800-902-7507. Call now.
President Biden continuing to undo many of the Trump administration's harshest immigration policies. Even though we're dealing with a surge at the southern border with more than 100,000 migrants detained just last month alone, that's the highest monthly total since the summer of 2019, this administration's handling things far different than the Trump folks did. Washington Post editorial page did what I felt was a good job of describing the differences, so let me now quote from that piece. As the numbers of undocumented families, lone teenagers, and even younger children apprehended at the border climb, Homeland Security officials, they're shifting gears by preparing to transform detention centers into short-term way stations from which families will be swiftly screened, tested for COVID, and then allowed to join relatives already in the States. That is a humane and different approach, it goes on to say, that would minimize the harm inflicted on minors. President Trump regarded trauma in the form of breaking up families as a fine tool of dissuasion when it came to illegal immigration. Mr. Biden, to his credit, is charting a different path. And in the meantime, President Biden has set up a task force to reunite all the families that were split up because at the time he took office, more than 600 kids we know of were still without parents. So far, at least 100 families have been reunited, so obviously still a long ways to go. I want to bring in my guest right now, Lee Gellern. He is the Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project. He's been at the forefront of the effort to locate the parents who had the kids taken away. He's also the lead attorney suing the government. And Lee, let me first get from your perspective, are you cautiously optimistic or are you completely confident that the right thing's going to be done for all the separated families? I know from the ruling of the judge, there was still a little bit of a fudge room here that it was a recommendation or a mandate.
I would say we're cautiously optimistic. You know, I think the Biden administration wants to do the right thing, has committed to doing the right thing. We hope that they're going to do it quickly and they're going to follow through, and that there's not going to be some initial burst and then they're going to fall down on it, because this is for the long haul. I think we're talking about more than 5,500 families that have been separated. There's going to need to be a real sustained commitment. We haven't seen any action from them yet, so I can't be anything more than just cautiously optimistic, but I hope we see something soon. If we don't see something soon, I think we're going to become very, very concerned and really push back very hard.
Lee, has it still been dumped on your guys' lap in that it took you and I know others' efforts to point out what the previous administration was doing, and only then, when they were in effect caught, did they say, yeah, fine, we did it, not our problem, and then you had to both find the populations that were impacted, at least the names, then you have to go out and find all the separated families. Are you confident now that at least you know which families were displaced, and are you getting help at least in terms of locating where they are before you even begin the reunification process?
So I think at this point, having been litigating this for 3 years, I don't want to say that we are confident that we know about every separated family, because there have been too many surprises over the 3 years. I am hoping that if any families haven't been brought to our attention, the Biden administration will figure that out. And they have already reached out to us to compare notes about what families we know have been separated. But it's still up to us to locate the families. We hope the Biden administration will give us help. We'll continue to look through databases for additional phone numbers and addresses. But unfortunately, there's no silver bullet to fix what the Trump administration did in locating the families. What we do hope is that the Biden administration will focus on what only the government can do, and that's giving permission to the parents to return to the United States to see their children again, giving them status here, and giving them restitution. We will continue to try and find the families, but the Biden administration needs to begin bringing the families back to the U.S. We have found, I think a lot of people don't realize that not only have we not found 500 families, but there are hundreds of other families who we have found, have been in contact with for years, but remain separated from their children because the Trump administration would not allow them to reunite here in the United States. So we'd like there to be parallel tracks while we continue to find the remaining families. We'd like the Biden administration to begin bringing back families to the U.S.
And Lee, strip away the legalese for a minute, and I'm sure there's people watching at home who are saying, why they let the kids come over here? They're trying to find a shortcut to come to this country. If anybody spent one day listening to the families, do you think there'd be a lot of changed hearts and minds in terms of what's the right thing to do here? This isn't a jump ball, is it?
No, I think you're right. I think there's a couple of things. One is that there's this misconception that families want to pick up with their young children, travel thousands of miles on a dangerous journey, and come to a strange place, leave their home and culture. It's just not true. People leave because they have to leave. And when I talk to families who came here and they had their children taken away, and I asked them, would you have come anyway if you had known your child was going to be taken? And they just shrugged and said, well, what choice did I have? I couldn't stay there and allow my child to be killed. And I think if people could have seen what happened with these little children, 2 or 3 years old, begging and screaming, please don't take me away from my mommy or daddy, I think this would have ended sooner if there could have been cameras there. The Trump administration tried to dehumanize this whole population, making it seem like they're just trying to come and take advantage of us, or they're criminals, or they're members of gangs. If people could see for themselves who these families are with these little children and the danger they've left and the trauma they've experienced, I suspect people would have a different view. Right now there's just this abstraction of all these numbers, but people really need to think about these families and see them as human beings. And I hope we can do that.
And just one more. Our government did this. This wasn't a couple rogue guys at the border who decided to take things in their own hands and make up policy on the fly. This was an intentional act by the U.S. government to traumatize kids and their parents. The current administration had nothing to do with this, but they have an opportunity to write a national disgrace. I mean, isn't that the way we ought to look at this?
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, this is a national disgrace. It's a historic disgrace. You know, I've said many times that this is the worst thing I've ever seen in 30 years doing this work. And this is one of those things that's going to go down in history as just shameful. The United States government deliberately engaged in child abuse. And that's what the American Academy of Pediatrics says. It was straight out child abuse, the trauma we inflicted on these children. And so the Biden administration didn't do this. But I think, as you put it, has an opportunity to fix it, and I think they need to fix it quickly.
And are you getting the help finally that you need, that you're not working in opposition with your own government? Is the new administration helping you make these reunifications possible?
So far, we've talked to them. They haven't engaged in any reunification. So I think when you asked me in the beginning, you know, am I confident or cautiously optimistic? Right now, I'm just going to be cautiously optimistic, because I can't say I'm confident it's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. We are still waiting for those first reunifications. So we'll wait and see. But at some point, we will begin to push back very hard. The Biden administration wants to do the right thing, says they want to do the right thing. But at some point, we need to see action.
All right. Lee, as always, keep up the good fight. Thank you for keeping us in the loop.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, now some top Democrats in New York, they're calling for Cuomo to step down over the abuse allegations. After the break, I'm going to show you how the governor is responding and also what are his chances of sticking it out.
Villains, robbers, bandits, crooks, they're all over your TV screen. But the biggest thieves are behind your screen. I'm talking about the cable companies. They charge monthly subscriptions, fees, rentals, and force you to take long-term contracts. Well, it's time to say goodbye to the cable guy, because now you can watch 4K Ultra HD broadcast TV for free. Introducing Clear TV's new 4K Ultra HD design, the Premium HD. Just plug it into your TV and start watching for free. You will instantly receive top-rated network shows, local news and weather, sporting events, and even Ultra HD 4K broadcast shows, all for free. Thanks to a federal government mandate, all broadcasters are required to transmit a digital TV signal through the airwaves. The new Premium Clear TV lets you bypass cable or satellite to bring network and 4K broadcast shows directly to your television. Retract the antenna to keep it small or extend them for maximum reception.
Setup was so easy. I took my Clear TV antenna, plugged it into the back of the TV, and now I can watch my favorite broadcast channels anywhere in the house for free.
We're just off the coast here in the Gulf of Mexico receiving free network broadcast HD TV. Imagine all the free shows you'll receive at home.
Basic cable and satellite services can cost you up to $80 a month. That's $960 a year and almost $10,000 over a 10-year period. Watch TV in as many rooms as you like with no additional monthly fees. Stop spending money you don't have to spend. Call or go online now and get your premium Clear TV 4K Ultra HD antenna for only $19.95. It's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee. Order now, and you can add a second Clear TV free. Just pay separate processing and handling. That's a $40 value for only $19.95.
I can't believe I get all these channels for free. Plus 4K Ultra HD, Clear TV is for real.
Attention timeshare owners. This is an urgent consumer alert from the Timeshare Exit Hotline, a national company specializing in helping consumers legally get out of their expensive timeshare contracts. We're offering you a way to legally get rid of your timeshare. So if you're fed up with the maintenance fees that keep on coming and want to learn if you can terminate your timeshare legally and permanently, call today. Call the number on your screen today. It's a free call.
There are some legislators who suggest that I resign because of accusations that are made against me. I was elected by the people of the state. I wasn't elected by politicians. I'm not going to resign because of allegations.
Governor Cuomo defiant yesterday, speaking to the press right after he received a call from one of the top Democrats in New York saying she was going to announce she wanted him to step down. That woman, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, she's the Senate Majority Leader. I'm going to read you part of her statement. Here it goes. New York is still in the midst of this pandemic and is still facing the societal health and economic impacts of it. We need to govern without daily distraction. For the good of the state, Governor Cuomo must resign. Another top Democrat, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, is also turning against Cuomo, saying, I think it is time for the governor to seriously consider whether he can effectively meet the needs of the people of New York. Now, all this comes as two more women made allegations against Governor over the weekend. Their names, Karen Hinton and Anna Liss. Hinton worked for Cuomo when he ran HUD, and Hinton says that he gave her a hug that was too long, too intimate in an LA hotel room 20 years ago. Liz says that 6 or 7 years ago, the governor would ask her if she had a boyfriend, calling her sweetheart, and he once kissed her hand. Liz didn't report her allegations at the time, saying she decided to come forward now after other accusers have spoken out. Cuomo's office denies he did anything inappropriate with either woman. Now, you got the Times reporting that the governor is increasingly isolated as well as agitated. And I quote, some people who have spoken to Mr. Cuomo in recent days have described him as shaking by the speed with which the political fallout arrived, with dueling scandals and reports of his bullying behavior all converging very publicly at once. Others have questioned whether he grasped the full gravity of the circumstance. Now, he's at the whims of an often fickle public opinion, fuming legislators, as well as investigations. Bringing Andrew back in. And Andrew, obviously, we got the poll numbers who said, and this is before the last two revelations, or I don't see, given the details or lack thereof, it's going to move the needle one way or the other, but that the public wanted him to stick this thing out, weren't too hot about him running for re-election, although between now and next November, it's a political lifetime, or maybe lifetimes. That said, it is interesting people that were queasy Democrats to go against the governor a week ago, now feeling that maybe they shouldn't feel so queasy and they can now come ahead. It's interesting because nothing really, at least from a fact standpoint, has moved the needle other than momentum.
No, and you could argue that the allegations that are coming out are actually getting a little less impactful as they go forward, going back 20 years ago and going back 6 or 7 years. I also think it's interesting that the leader of the state Senate, while she called for him to resign, said she wasn't going to take any action. It would be her chamber that would hold an impeachment trial if the governor was to be impeached. She didn't call for that, so it seemed like the next step that she could go. She also has to mollify her caucus as well and keep them on the same page too. So everybody's feeling competing political pressures at this point. I think the governor's in a weakened position from where he was on Friday, and I think the numbers that you referenced will continue to soften on him, if only just because more allegations, more controversy, and it's not like he can come out with any bit of good news to help offset that.
I think in terms of tone and in terms of presence, I'm doing this without any inside information. I think we're going to see a change. I think what we saw on the radio on Sunday is his best position. He doesn't play, coyly begging for forgiveness well. I think he says, wait a minute now. People are trying to take political pot shots, and they are. I mean, he put himself in his own hot water, make no mistake. But now, all of a sudden, after a hug 20 years ago in a hotel room, that's going to now all of a sudden move the needle. I think he's going to be more aggressive. I don't think he'll take questions at these briefings like he has in the past or limit the scope of it. I think he's got to do a bigger in-depth interview. But I think he's going to attempt to go more on offense than defense with specific attackers, not necessarily some of the women in question.
I think he needs to try to humanize himself to a certain degree here. This is all about Andrew Cuomo, the governor, and we haven't really heard from, Andrew and his very personal views and recollections of this. I think he would do well to do an extended sit down with a 60 Minutes or something like that, so we can get part of that aside. I also, by the way, found it interesting. Stuart Cousins, the state Senate leader, she talked about the daily distractions that having Governor Cuomo remain in office would cause. I get that, I do. But I also think there would be massive distractions if he resigned as well, because then all of a sudden you have political chaos and nobody running the state's pandemic response.
And Andrew, and I'm not attempting by any means, please, to minimize workplace harassment. And I think one particular contention, in fact, the second woman who came through here, who talked about her experiences with the governor, even went through the proper chains, was moved to a different office. I think that is the most credible contention right now and legitimate questions. But if this moves at this speed, I want everybody to think about what now, because of the last two allegations that came forward about 20 years ago or 6 or 7, they couldn't remember the other one, and it was a hug or a kiss of a hand, that where is the new standard now? And think about every Politico going forward. Where will the new line be? Because people don't believe they're setting precedents. They are right now. And to me, I think this rush to judgment, you have an attorney general, it's out of the governor's hands as it should be, who's now going to do a probe. It's going to take a while. But let's get some of the facts in place here and then make our own decisions. This idea of a mob deciding with the media, that's not our job to be doing this. Let the facts dictate, and if he should be gone, make him go. But at least let the facts come out.
And that's a great point, because as we've gone through the Me Too era, one thing we haven't done is sort of come up with unofficial rules for how we're going to be dealing with these things. The general consensus is that the movement against Al Franken probably happened faster than it should have, and he was not given a chance, and was not given due process, wasn't given a chance to give his side of the story. The arguments against Donald Trump and the 26 allegations against him went way too slow. I mean, they were all politicized, and nothing happened with any one of them. Cuomo's sort of stuck in the middle here, and how fast or slowly do we take this? What should be the process for dealing with this? I agree with you. I would like to see the Attorney General's investigation play out so that we can at least all deal with a common set of facts as we go through this. And maybe the next time something like this happens, whether right or wrong, there's at least a process that we can follow.
And again, you got the budget ahead of New York here, let alone handling COVID in the middle of a pandemic. There's important things the government needs to be doing here, so at least they get to the people's business. All right, coming up next, we usually avoid covering the royals, but in the wake of Oprah's interview with Harry and Meghan, there's a lot to talk about that story. Everybody, more than 17 million people watching last night, them and more have opinions. Andrew and I'll share ours after this.
This is a national healthcare alert from the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one has diabetes, listen closely. Now, regardless of your age, if you have insurance, you may qualify to receive diabetic testing supplies with little to no out-of-pocket cost. Get free delivery, free information, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers for free. Call the 24/7 Diabetic Health Hotline now for details. Toll free at this number. But wait, there's more. If you call right now, you could get a meter upgrade. In addition, we'll give you a free pair of diabetic socks as our special gift to you. Regardless of your age, if you suffer with diabetes and have insurance, you may qualify to get free delivery of your supplies. Call now. We can help.
Call 1-800-972-0451. 1-800-972-0451. That's 1-800-972-0451. Call now.
Are you over the age of 50 and considering buying an annuity in the next 60 days? I have some important news for you. Don't buy an annuity until you understand the pros and cons of annuities. Call now for this free book on maximizing your income in retirement. Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers from leading financial firm J.D. Milberg. That's right, free. This book reveals little-known truths about annuities in simple-to-understand terms. Grab a pen right now because we're about to offer you this free book that unlocks the 5 little-known truths we believe baby boomers and seniors should know before buying an annuity. And it's free.
Call 800-258-6979.
As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report. We researched numerous products and summarized rates and benefits of annuities, all from Sentinel Security Life Insurance Company.
Call 800-258-6979. That's 800-258-6979.
Call now. 8 years ago, my daughter called to say she was expecting our first grandchild, but I never heard her say it. So a few years ago, Gina bought me a nano hearing aid. And now I love hearing Ryan call me Papa. And at only $297 for a full pair, they make a great gift for someone you know. Plus, call now and order 1 hearing aid, and Nano will give you a second absolutely free.
Call 1-800-238-2857.
I didn't fully understand what the job was. I will say I went into it naively because I didn't grow up knowing much about the royal family. It wasn't something that was part of conversation at home. It wasn't something that we followed.
Meghan Markle talking about how unprepared she was when she married into the royal family. A lot of people aren't buying that she was naive, but I got to tell you, as I said, 17 million people, I'm one of them, right? We watched Oprah's primetime special last night, which is a very high number in the age of streaming. This is also the most talked about interview we've seen in a long time, especially given the allegations of racism made by both Harry and Meghan.
In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What? Meghan shared with us that there was a conversation with you about Archie's skin tone. What was that conversation?
That conversation I'm never going to share.
Markle also opened up with her battles with depression, said she couldn't get the help she desperately needed.
Look, I was really ashamed to say it at the time, and ashamed to have to admit it to Harry especially, because I know how much loss he's suffered. But I knew that if I didn't say it, that I would do it. And I just didn't want to be alive anymore. I went to the institution and I said that I needed to go somewhere to get help. I said that I've never felt this way before and I need to go somewhere. And I was told that I couldn't, that it wouldn't be good for the institution.
Listen, you or I are not royal watchers here. I don't even watch The Crown. I didn't intend to watch a lot. I watched the entire thing. And I've been really surprised, Andrew, reactions of people, and they don't follow any political age or demo. Some women, you know, couldn't stand what they heard from Markle last night. Some guys are very sympathetic to what they went through. But you and I, it's our job to consume media in many cases and know how it's done. We're not the primary audience, forget about you and I, but also England, which is watching it as we speak. Tonight it's airing there, or today it's airing there. And did you walk away more sympathetic to Harry and Meghan than before the night began?
First of all, I think there's a gossip deficit running around within the age of COVID, so I think that's one of the reasons why this has appeal. Look, we can't talk about the people of the water cooler at the office because we're not going to the office, but we can talk about Meghan and Harry. I was more sympathetic to Meghan and Harry after the interview last night. The allegation of racism is something that we hadn't heard before, and that I could understand making it very uncomfortable for her and for them as a couple. There were plenty of things where I was losing sympathy for both sides in the whole thing, that Meghan was somehow unprepared for what she had to go through. She, you know, nobody was there to play the national anthem for me, and that's, yeah, but, you know, how could you be that naive as to what you were getting into? But it also sounds like there's some pretty monstrous behavior coming from the palace.
But here's my thing. To quote a British analogy, if you're going to do what they did, do the full Monty. In that, there was a clarification after the interview that in fact was a family member who had the conversation not with Meghan Markle, but with Harry about the concerns of the color of their newborn. Harry, who decided to share it with the world, wouldn't put a name to it, but said it was a family member and it wasn't my grandparents, it wasn't the Queen or her ailing husband. So that leaves pretty much dad or his brother, okay? I'm sorry. As a guy with a couple brothers, if I'm gonna throw a family member under the bus and ruin basically the monarchy, for which was very good to me, and I understand there's a whole gilded cage, if you're gonna go there, go there. Don't leave it hanging out there where now there's guilt by association for the entire royal family. And then the other part is, I understand, God knows what they went through with their mother, but that you are in such a gilded cage that the ever-present paparazzi and the British tabloids are making your life a living hell. If the media is so horrible, Why are you going on Oprah for 2 hours in prime time, and why are you signing a deal with Netflix? Again, everyone has a right to live their own lives, and I wish their family nothing, but it seems that they wanted it both ways in so many different ways last night, and they didn't have, if they were going to go there, they didn't go the complete way. And I'm supposed to care about bridesmaids dresses, or I'm sorry, flower girl dresses as like a major point of contention? Really?
I get that. To your first point, I cut them a little slack only because if you're talking about one of the two future kings of England.
Well, they've made them both guilty.
That's also their lifeline back to the royal family, and if they want to ever resume their royal duties.
Well, I think that lifeline's
No. I don't have any problem with that. I really don't. And keeping some veil of modesty over the whole thing, I'm okay with that. I am. As for the other points, yeah, I mean, this would have meant a lot more if 2 years ago they had spoken to the press and talked about the issues that they were having and tried to speak up for it and maybe figure out a way that they could all remain, together. But this does seem a little bit like having your cake and eating it too now after the fact. And yeah, talking to Oprah is not exactly the cure for tabloids.
I am going to be fascinated where the British public falls on this, because it's either one camp or the other. There's no gray areas with this one. Not only who you believe, but who you feel more for.
I'd love to have the Queen just say, like, you know what, we love you, come home.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold that, Andrew. All right, we'll be right back, everyone, to wrap things up. Stay with us.
Important healthcare news for all Americans. Whether insured, uninsured, or on Medicare, if you feel sick at midnight or your child runs a high fever, you want to immediately speak with a doctor. Now with Telemed One, you have a doctor on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Use your landline, mobile, tablet, or computer to speak or video with a board-certified doctor in your state. With Telemed One, you're quickly connected with a doctor, get diagnosed, and if medication is needed, a prescription is sent electronically to your local pharmacy. According to the American Medical Association, up to 75% of doctor, urgent care, and ER visits can be safely managed by a telemedicine plan like Telemed One. Don't delay. Telemed One is about $1 a day with no per call or video fees. Members and family get unlimited video and phone usage. Get protected now. Everyone is accepted. No insurance needed.
Mary and Shirley both need oxygen. Shirley lost her freedom the day she went on oxygen, but Mary has the ultra-compact Inogen 1 G4 oxygen concentrator from Inogen. It's the smallest and lightest model we've ever made, so she'll always have the oxygen she needs anytime, anywhere. The sooner you call, the sooner you can reclaim the freedom and independence you deserve. Call now for your 30-day risk-free trial.
Call 800-683-1390. That's 800-683-1390.
If something happened to you, what would happen to them? Their home, their education, their future. You need life insurance, and chances are SelectQuote can help you get it for less than $1 a day.
SelectQuote found Jacob 40, a $500,000 policy for only $19 a month. And SelectQuote found his wife Wendy, a $500,000 policy for only $17 a month.
Our secret? At SelectQuote, we aggressively comparison shop up to 10 highly rated companies to find you the company with the best rates.
We found Gary, 35, a $1 million policy for only $22 a month.
Why pay more? Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford.
Call 800-717-7198 or go to selectquote.com now and get the insurance your family needs.
At a price you can afford. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Well, that's going to do it for us tonight on RFL. As always, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you here tomorrow night. We're going to dig further into the stimulus package and who it's going to help, really putting a face on the poverty in this country. Again, that all starts 6 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. I'll see you Tuesday right here.
Attention.